Hey, and welcome to episode 3 of the Digital Discipleship Podcast. For those of you who don't know, I'm Henry Tober and I'm the Simple Systems guy. And one of the cries of my heart is to see discipleship return to the church and to really become the primary focus of the church. And over the past several weeks, we've still been launching this podcast and this blog. And your feedback has been just absolutely amazing. Just to all of you who have shown support, who have watched the videos, shared them, listened to the podcast, whatever it is, downloaded our free ebooks, all of those different things. I just want to say thank you so much because your support does mean a lot to us. And my hope is to really start to help you think through the details of your leadership, just the details of who God has called you to be and how He's called you to lead as we navigate specifically issues around discipleship. Well, today I have another, what I believe is going to be an exciting topic for you because we're going to be talking about building out your leadership development structure. I'm going to be talking to you about really, and not only am I going to talk to you about it, here's what I love about this podcast. I get to help you do it. So I'm going to help you really approach developing new leaders in the church. You know, if you're going to lead and you're going to lead well, one of the things that you've got to do is that you've got to begin to think about how you're going to develop leaders. You know, I would love it if leaders just grew on trees, but they don't. And if you've led for any number of time, you know that you can only go as far and as fast as your team. And if you don't have a team around you who can help you get from where you are to where God is calling you to go, then your progress gets frustrated. And this is a lesson I learned years and years ago. And I was a church planter, and I was very early in the journey. And as I was very early in the journey, you know, I was praying because we were just started the church. We were maybe a couple of months in, and I was literally praying, Lord, send me some leaders. Lord, send me some leaders. And as I really started to pray that prayer, the Lord really gave me an answer that I wasn't expecting. And so, I'm really big on vision. I'm a very visual person. And so there was this facility that I was praying for. It used to be an old nightclub. And I would go to that facility, sit in the parking lot, and just pray. And I remember one day I was standing there and I was praying, and I said, Lord, send me some leaders. As a matter of fact, my specific prayer was, I said, Lord, if you send me 5 married couples who have their stuff together and are on fire for you, I said, I will help transform this entire city with just 5 couples, 10 people, Lord, just send them to me. And one of the things that the Lord said to me, He gave me an answer I wasn't expecting. And in many ways, it was an answer I didn't want. He said, if you build them, you will always have them. And man, that was a tough pill to swallow because really what I was praying for was like, Lord, send me some leaders. And really just dissect that prayer for a minute. When we pray that, what are we really asking? Are we saying, Lord, take somebody from another church and send them to me? Are we saying, Lord, send somebody who's been frustrated from somewhere else and send them to me? Or Lord, send somebody who's leading the secular world and send them over here, and I'll teach them how to lead in ministry. What are we really asking for, right? And I'm not saying that they're right or wrong. I'm just telling you to think about it because all of those are reality. There will always be leaders from other places who are looking for a landing spot. There will always be leaders in the secular world that the gospel can meet and transform and bring in. There will always be people who have been hurt and wounded in one situation and looking for another. So all of those are reality. But I'm asking you to think about, what are you really asking God for? And so when I really started to pray that prayer, God said to me, if you build them, you'll always have them. And so right then I said in my heart, okay, I'm going to build leaders. And if I'm honest with you, I had no idea what I was doing. The best I could do was to gather a group of people and just share with them what God was sharing with me. If I studied something throughout the week, I asked them to come get together with me and I would share it with them. Right. And so what I learned, I would pass that information on to them. And that was my way of developing leaders. I would also give people opportunity. I would grab people and say, hey, come walk alongside me and do this and so forth and so on. And so it was a really a trial and error kind of process. But here's the beautiful thing that came out of that. Over the course of walking that journey, and this has been, oh wow, some, you know, 10, 12 years ago at this point. But walking through that journey, I learned something because we did produce some leaders. And I didn't realize that I was producing great leaders at the time. At the time that I was doing, I felt so inadequate. And I felt like that maybe I was wasting my time. I felt like that it wasn't really making a difference. But eventually, when we would, send those leaders out and they would go out and lead in other places and lead in other churches, that's when we started to know the quality of the people that we were really, really building. And so I want to take all of that experience and I even want to take the example of Jesus and really start to help you map through how you can develop a plan to build leaders in your church. And I'm talking about building, maybe you've got some current leaders that you inherited and they're there and they're faithful and they're willing to serve. But maybe they don't necessarily fit right now the vision of where you're going. Maybe they can't see what you see and they don't think how you think. Maybe you're just starting something new and you've got some new young leaders who are hungry, but you're trying to figure out how to develop them. Wherever you are, in this episode, I'm going to help you begin to think through your specific strategy. Now, here's something I want to say, and I'm going to say this often, but I want to say it again. Whenever we talk through these projects, I'm not giving you a hard and fast rule and saying, here's how you have to do it. What I want each of these episodes to be, and every resource that I give you, is I want it to be a tool that you can use to contextualize a process to fit you and your church, because every church is different. Every church has a different culture, a different history, reaches different people. Everybody's different. And so because every church is different, every strategy is going to be different. And so I'm going to give you a tool, and I'm going to give you some tools and some strategies to think through. And you can take them and you can, edit them and make them fit who you are and where you are. All right. So let's jump into this. Here's what we're going to talk about today. As we walk through this, here's kind of our 7-part stop. All right. First, we're going to talk about why you need to develop leaders. And I've given you just a little bit of that, but I'm going to talk about it some more. Then we're going to take a look at how did Jesus develop leaders? And we really walked through this in the last episode. So if you haven't heard episode 2, I would encourage you to go back and listen to that as we walk down the 15 benefits of discipleship and just looking at these 3 promises that Jesus makes to the disciples that he calls to him. And so we're going to walk through the process where we're going to say, okay, how do you identify the people that you're going to invest in, helping you set a schedule for what that's going to look like, define the win. What's really the goal here? We're going to clarify the takeaways, and then we're going to measure progress. And so within that framework, we're going to give you the tools that you need to start taking some steps. All right, so let's jump in. Let's talk about this first. Let's talk about the what and why. Look at this quote that I found from President Ronald Reagan. He said, the greatest leader is not necessarily the one who does the greatest things. He is the one that gets the people to do the greatest things. And when I saw that quote, I love that quote because I think it's so true, is that your leadership is about where you lead people. In the past, the church has been so focused on seating capacity. How many people can we gather? How many people can we gather? But I believe that the real fruit of ministry and the fruit of the future is not seating capacity, it's sending capacity, right? So you need to develop people that can be sent into the work of God. And that doesn't mean that you're going to send them away from the church. It simply means that you are sending them from a place where they're just sitting to a place where they're actively involved in ministry. Think about it this way. What would happen if you decided to take a 3-month sabbatical from the church, right? Or God forbid, something happens in your life that you need to be away from for 3 months. What happens to the church if you disappear for 3 months? Are there people in place who can help continue to not just keep service going, right? Because that's not what we're talking about. We're not just talking about just keeping a church service going. Are there people there who can keep the ministry going, who can keep things moving in the right direction, who can keep discipling people, who can keep raising up new volunteers, who can keep doing outreach projects, who can keep developing extravagant givers, people who can continue the work of ministry in a significant way. And see, this is why leadership development is so important. If you don't develop leaders and if you don't have leaders around you, Your vision is constrained. Your vision cannot move because the vision can only go where people take it. And I'm here to tell you, if you're the only one who's pulling the vision, if you're the only one, if there's only one person who's trying to drive the vision forward, the vision won't go very far and it won't go very fast. And so what you've got to be thinking about is not how can I do greater things, but how can I inspire people to do great things? How can I inspire those around me to step up in ministry and really make a difference in our world? See, that's where the impact of your leadership is really felt. It's where you lead people. You know, Ephesians 4, Paul gives us this model that I think is just absolutely amazing. And one of the things that he talks about, he says that here are the gifts that Christ gave the church. He talks about the apostle, prophet, evangelist, shepherd, and teacher. But he goes on to say that he gave them these gifts for the equipping of the saints for the work of ministry. In essence, he gave us our gifts, not just for projects, but also for people. He gave them to us for people, for us to develop people. So if I'm an apostolic leader, I'm not there just to govern the church or just to govern projects. I'm there to lay out the tracks so that others can come behind and do what they're called to do. I'm there to bring the requisite order and the vision and the leadership that's needed for it to go forward. If I'm called to be a shepherd, I'm not just there to shepherd people, but I'm there to shepherd people and to teach other shepherds how to shepherd people, right? I'm there for people. And so when we talk about leadership development, we're talking about doing it so that you can continue to push the work of the ministry forward. So here's what I want you to think about when we talk about leadership development. It is your strategy for helping people become the leaders that God intended them to be. Leadership development is your strategy for helping people become the leaders God intended them to be. So let's look again briefly at Jesus' strategy. Look at what Jesus says in Matthew 4:19, and we studied this in episode 2. He says, "Follow me and I will make you fishers of men." All right. And so what does he do? He does a couple of things. His strategy is really, really simple. He says, number one, he says, "Follow me." So he makes a very clear offer to the men that he has chosen. He has pinpointed these 12 men that he wants to follow him and walk alongside him. And so as he pinpoints them, he makes a clear offer and says, "Hey, I'm challenging you. I'm calling you to come and follow me. I'm calling you to get in line with me. I'm calling you to come walk with me on a journey." And that's a part of his strategy. So he says, "Come follow me." He sets a clear offer. Then he says, "I'll make you." So he says, "I'm going to focus on the internal change." He says, "I'm going to take responsibility for what you become." He says, "I already have in mind who you will be as we walk together." And that's something you and I are going to think about for your strategy, is that Jesus says, "I already have a picture in my mind of who you will become as you commit to walking on this journey with me." And so you want to focus, and Jesus does this, he focuses first on internal change. And then he says, "I'll make you fishers of men." Fishers of men. He says, now, this is the third and final thing, is I'm going to empower you. And let me stop right here and say this. One of the big mistakes that the church, I believe, has made and sometimes continues to make is that we train and develop people that we are unwilling to release. I'm going to say that again. We have been training and developing people that we are unwilling to release. And so what you've got to be thinking about at the very onset of this process is, what are you going to release people to do? You know, discipleship has really gotten a bad rap, and even leadership development has gotten a bad rap because we have hemmed it in to being just information. And development is so much more than information. As a matter of fact, if you really study it and you watch Jesus's journey with the disciples, he spends about 25% of his time in the lecture and 75% of his time in the lab, right? And so in the lecture is where he's teaching and he's talking. In the lab is where he said, "Okay, let's go do, right? Let's go out here and execute some stuff." And so we've got to get that right as the church, is that you've got to right now be thinking about, how are you going to send these new leaders into the lab? How are you going to allow them to develop experience? That's one of the things that we see in our kind of economy right now here in America, is that one of the challenges is that there are so many jobs, especially coming out of college. They want you to have a degree, but they also want you to have 10 years of experience for a job that might pay you entry level. And there's this weird thing. It's like, okay, how do I get experience if you don't help me get it? If somebody doesn't hire me in the field, how do I get the experience I need? And so you've got to be thinking about, how will you help these leaders get the experience that they need to become who God has called them to be? All right. So let's jump right into it. All right. So let's talk about this. All right. First off, the first thing I want to challenge you to do is to identify the 12. Identify the 12. All right. Who are the people that you're asking to come along with you on this journey? All right. Who are those people? Who are those people that you're saying, hey, I'm inviting you to come walk with me, and I'm going to take you on a journey to see you developed as a greater leader? All right. And you've got to think about this. You've got to think about, where are you headed as a leader? Where's your church headed? Right? Because you're going to need to identify leaders who are in alignment with the mission that God has given you. All right. And so, for example, I'll give you a very simple thing, right? A part of the vision for the church that I lead is that we want to be a diverse, Jesus-centered church, right? So our staff, our team, is a diverse, Jesus-centered team, right? We have a team that is in many ways a reflection of where we're trying to go and what we're trying to do. And so you want to have and you want to do the same thing. You want to make sure that you're building a team that fits where you're trying to go. And that's it on so many different levels, right? If you're a fast-paced, forward-thinking leader, then that's something you want to consider as you call people to come in with you. And so you want to think about where you are and also where you're going. And that's important, because you may have some people on your team who understand really, really well where you are. They know the history of the church. Maybe they were even at the church before you. And so as a part of your process, you could be considering, how do you help shift them? How do you help them grow together so that they can get from where you are to where you're going? This is one of the things we talk about in the Rechurch Challenge. If you haven't seen it, I encourage you to go and sign up. But with the 5-day Rechurch Challenge, one of the things we talk about in there is revitalization. Revitalize your team, taking the people who have been there, taking the new people you're calling, pulling them together and say, we're training to go in the same direction. That we're all coming from different places, but we're going in the same direction. It's like college. You go to college, man, people come from all kind of states, all kind of countries, all kind of backgrounds, all kind of races, all kind of cultures. And yet we get plugged into some of the same classes because we're going in the same direction. I could be focused on business. You could be focused on finance. You could be focused on communication. And yet there are some classes that we all have to take together. And so that's how you want to think, all right? Another thing I'll say about this before I move on is, I want you to think about, what is your capacity as a leader? How many leaders could you pull close and develop without it being too much for you, or without dropping the ball on the project, right? You've got to think about what your capacity is. You've got to think about your ability, because some of this is going to be relational. Again, it's not just a classroom, but you've got to be able to send these people. One of the things that we've recently done is we've shifted our ministry team in, and that team has grown to about 15 people now, because that's what I felt we needed for this season of ministry that we're stepping into. But my vision for our church has the capacity for 15 people and some more. So we've got somebody focusing on worship, somebody focusing on hospitality, somebody focusing on media, somebody focusing on social media, somebody focusing on discipleship, somebody focusing on prayer, somebody focusing on children and youth and leadership development and small groups and so many different other areas, right? We've got people focusing on all these areas because the vision that I have for our church and the vision I presented is so expansive that all of those different people can come in and exercise who God has called them to be and the vision not run out of capacity. And so you've got to think about the capacity of your vision and the capacity of your leadership. And this is not a test. This is not a competition. You don't make yourself be able to handle 20 people when in the season of ministry you're in, you can get it done with 5. But what I'm telling you is a part of the thinking that I think would benefit you is figuring out how many people can I handle? How many people can I release? How many people can I lead and manage at the same time without the process getting stuck and becoming overwhelming? All right. Let's keep going. Here's the next thing I want you to think about is setting your schedule. What's going to be your schedule? You know, Jesus said, follow me and I'll make you fishers of men. And we would discover that his schedule was, I want y'all to be with me 24/7. Like we do life together now. Like we in this thing together. Well, most of us can't do that. We have families of our own and lives of our own and other things to do. But what's going to be your schedule? All right. So a couple of things to think about. I want you to think long term for a minute. All right. And I just want you to think even just for the next 3.5 or 3 years. All right. At the time of this recording, it's 2022. I want you to be thinking about 2025. All right. How long is the leadership process that you're inviting people to come into? Right. I'm just asking what you have in mind. Now, Jesus did 3.5 years, but he was giving people the greatest mission in the world. He was literally putting into these guys' hands the biggest and greatest and largest mission we've ever seen. And he did it in 3.5 years of spending daily time with them. So for you, what are you thinking about? Like, what's this process for you? All right. I'll give you another example. In addition to our staff and our ministry team, I'm leading a small group. And I'm leading a small group that's focusing on developing leadership in men. Right. That's the focus of this small group. And one of the things that I'm doing is we're starting out with just a 1-year focus, a 1-year focus. All right. I've also laid everything out. And so just for the next 1 year, here's going to be our focus. And I'm asking these guys to come walk with me. But I've also given them an off ramp at 12 weeks. So after 12 weeks, if it's not for them, they can step out and that's okay. And we'll keep on trucking. And I can also bring new people in at 12 weeks if I so choose. All right. And so the point is, I'm just asking you to think about how long the process is going to be. Number 2, how often are you going to meet with them? You know, what's going to be your rhythm? One of the things that really derails a lot of processes that we try to do and a lot of new things we undertake is not setting the schedule up front. So don't go into it and say, hey, just meet me tonight and we'll figure it out. Like say, okay, we're going to meet every Wednesday night at 6:00 p.m. I want you to go ahead and set aside time on your schedule every month for Wednesday night because that's where we're going to meet, right? So for you, what's going to be your rhythm? What's the rhythm that you're setting and that you're putting out there so that you can get people to make a good decision about what they're committing to? Then the final thing is this. What are you going to cover? What's going to be your subject matter as you walk through this? You know what I'm saying? You've got to be thinking about what resources you're going to use to develop people. You know, here's what I suggest. I suggest grabbing a resource that already exists, whether it be a book or a study or something like that, so that you can then walk people through it. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about why I say that in a little bit. But I want you to think about that. I want you to think about the resource that you're going to use to help guide the resource, because it's going to make a huge, huge, huge difference. All right. So here's the next thing. Let's talk about this. All right. Next, let's talk about defining the win. Defining the win. All right. I want you to get insanely clear. Right. That's one of the things I'm saying a lot now. Insane clarity. I want you to get insane clarity about why these future leaders should partner with you on this journey. What's the outcome? Jesus says If you walk with me, I'm going to make you fishers of men. So, so what's the win? What are you really doing? What are you really building? I want you to think about that. I want you to get into your mind. Here is what we're trying to accomplish as we go forward. All right. So let's take it a step further. Let's clarify the takeaway. So when we talk about clarify the takeaways, we're thinking about specific results that are going to come along with this process. All right. So there are 4 results that I'm thinking about in the process that I'm stepping into right now. All right. Number 1 is our process is going to be filled with reading assignments. I chose a book, and the book that I chose, um, I have assigned to those leaders, and those leaders are going to have a responsibility to be reading that book every week. Because really, what we're going to do, when we get together, is we're going to be discussing what they did. We're not coming together for me to sit there and read to them. We're coming together to discuss what we already read. Because I'm not trying to see just if they comprehend what's coming out of this book. I'm trying to help them learn how to process the information that's coming out of the book. I know that the information coming out of the book is reputable. It's a resource that lies heavily on the word, all those kinds of things. So I'm not worried about that. The thing that I'm concerned with, or the things that I'm thinking about, is I'm trying to build the Navy SEALs of our church. I'm trying to build the spiritual SWAT team of our church with these men. And so I'm more concerned with them allowing God through this study to transform their heads, their heart, and their hands as we walk through a process together. So they're going to have reading assignments. The second thing that's going to be a part of it is deep discussion, is that their challenge is going to be to come to the table and be able to converse about what we're reading and about what we're studying in a way that makes a huge difference. Like, they've got to be able to dive down into it and really wrestle with where we're headed and where we're going, right? The third thing is life application. There are going to be some markers that I'm going to be looking for in their lives to see that they're grabbing what we're talking about. For example, one of the first topics that we're going to discuss is the heart of a leader. The heart of a leader. So as leaders, what needs to be our heart posture? What is God looking for as it relates to the heart? Well, I'm going to be looking for cues in their lives that say their hearts are changing. I'm going to be looking at how they respond to people, how they go out of their way to meet needs, how they take initiative when people are in need of ministry, like all those different things we may be looking for. And then last but not least, ministry leadership. My goal is to develop leaders. And so as I'm working and striving to develop leaders, then one of the things that I'm going to be looking for is I'm going to be looking for how they operate within the ministry opportunities that get put in front of them. Right? I'm going to be talking to our other leader and our other leaders and our other team members about these guys and saying, hey, here's a space where I want them to be involved. Here's a space where I think they could have some effect and some impact, whatever it may be. And I'm going to be doing that because I'm trying to push us towards these specific results. And so I'm challenging you to clarify the takeaways. Like, what do you want to see happen as a result of what's going on? What do you want to see happen as a result of what we've discussed, as a result of what we've talked about, as a result of what we've worked through, all those different things? What do you want to see happen? All right. Now, here, one of the final things I want to talk about is measuring progress. All right. Measuring progress. Now, when we talk about measuring progress, there are a couple of terms that I want to introduce you to when it comes to goal setting. And those are lead goals and lag goals. All right. So I'm going to do this backwards. Let's talk about the lag goals first. All right. Lag goals are goals that focus on results. All right. So these are goals that are the outcome of a bunch of other things that have happened. All right. So, for example, if we were a church and we set a goal and we said, okay, we want to add 100 new members to the church today. Well, that's a lag goal, right? Because that's a goal that's really a result of a bunch of other stuff. Because you can set a goal all you want to say 100 new people join the church, right? But you don't just go outside, pick up people and then they just join the church, or nor do you just sit back and just wait and say, okay, I'm waiting for 100 people to join the church, right? That's a lag goal because there are other things that need to happen before, all right? And so when you think about a lag goal is something that by the time you can measure it, it's already happened. So by the time you get to the end of the year and you're counting and you're saying, okay, man, we got 100 new people join the church. Well, it's already happened. Or 50 new people join. What's happened? It's already happened, right? The goal is already there. So this one is really focused on the ultimate result. What I want to challenge you to focus on are what is called lead goals. Lead goals focus on input that will affect the ultimate outcomes. All right. So the lead goals are the goals that lead us up to the lag goals. All right. So for example, you say your lag goal is to have 100 people join the church or have 100 new people attend over the course of the year. Well, then your lead goal might be we're going to pass out 1,000 invite cards, right? Because that's a lead goal. Because see, really and truly, you can't directly impact lag goals. The way you impact lag goals is through lead goals. And so you put something in front to say, here's the behavior I want you to take. And then later on, we can define what we want to come out of that, right? So here's why I'm telling you that. When it comes to these new leaders that you're trying to develop, I want you to be thinking about the actionable inputs that you're going to be watching from them, right? And so maybe one goal is, okay, we're going to be doing this leadership development once a month for the next 12 months. And your lead goal is, hey, I'm challenging every one of you to attend 11 out of the 12 meetings. So I know life happens and we're in a pandemic and all this kind of stuff. So I'm challenging you to attend 11 out of 12 meetings. That's a lead goal. Because if they attend 11 out of the 12 meetings, then one of the lag goals of that will be, for them to change in some significant way because they're actually coming up, or for them to build a deeper relationship with other group members, which will happen because they will have met with them 11 times. So meeting with them 11 times helps increase the relationship that you have. And so what I'm really saying to you, and I'm getting ready to close out here, is I'm challenging you to think much more deeply about the results that you want to see happen, but the inputs that you want to see from these leaders. What do you want to see them do? What are you putting in their hands? What opportunities are you giving them? Maybe you tell them individually, hey, I want you to have 5 gospel conversations every month with somebody new, right? I want you to tell somebody about Jesus every single month. I know it's awkward, but I'm challenging you to do it. At work, I'm challenging you to go to the store, go walk around Walmart, Target, and just talk to somebody about Jesus. Start a conversation with somebody about Jesus. That's a lead goal because that's something they can directly control, right? Jesus sent out the 72. He says, hey, look, this is what I'm sending y'all out to do. I want y'all to cast out demons, and I want y'all to heal the sick, and I want y'all to do all those things. Well, a lag goal might have been, hey, I want y'all to get some ministry experience. Well, how do we get ministry experience? Well, by being sent out to go heal the sick and cast out demons. So I want you to think about that, all right? Listen, my hope is that this has been a blessing to you. And if you want to talk more about what's happening in your church and what's happening around you, here's some contact. You can always email me at henry@simplesystems.cc, or you can visit us online at www.simplesystems.cc. Whatever way you choose to get in contact with us, look, we love to work with you. Even down below, and at the top of our website, you will see a button to schedule a free discovery call. If your church is thinking about how to better develop leaders or build a discipleship process, and you want to see, and working with us is a great option for you, all you got to do is click that button, set up a Zoom call, and I would love to jump on a call with you and to talk to you about what God is doing with your church. Hear some more about your vision and see how we can come alongside you and serve you. All right. Listen, I hope this has been a blessing. This is episode 3, y'all. We are doing it. Man, would you do me a favor? Would you share this with another church leader? You know somebody who needs to hear much of what we've been sharing. We've been talking about discipleship, we're talking about leadership development, and we're getting ready to dive deeper into that even with our next episode. So take a moment, share this with somebody you know, text it to them, post it on your social media, tag us in it, whatever it is. I would love to celebrate with you that you're helping us to continue to build a kingdom by getting the word out. Listen, I hope that this has been a blessing. And until next time, keep the gears turning.